My name is Trent, and I swear to God, if you're watching or listening to this, don't be like me. Don't chase a thrill you don't understand. And above all, don't mess with a challenge that has rules. Because once you break one, it follows you. It all started with a group chat. Me and 3 of my friends, Drew, Mikey, and Rob, we've always been into horror stuff. Movies, dares, urban legends. That kind of thing. So when Rob found this post on a deep horror subreddit called Dead Minutes, we were all in. It was titled, The 303 Door Challenge, Do Not Play. We laughed, obviously. According to the post, you had to do it alone in your own house. The ritual had 3 steps. 1. Write your full name on a sheet of paper and place it under your welcome mat. 2. Turn off all lights in your house at 3 a.m. sharp. 3. At 3:03, there would be a knock at your front door. Do not open it. Do not speak. Do not move. If you stay silent and still until 3:13 a.m., the visitor will leave. You win. If you break the rules, something else enters. And it doesn't leave. We dared each other to do it. 1 night each. Document it. Text the group when it was over. Rob went first. He joked the whole time. Said the knock happened, freaked him out, but he didn't open the door. Made it to 3:13, no problem. He even sent us a video of him flipping the bird at the door, whispering, "Nice try, demon." Mikey went next. He said he didn't hear any knock, just silence. Felt like nothing happened. We figured it was all made up. Then it was my night. I followed the steps. Name under the mat. Lights off at exactly 3 a.m. I sat in the dark on the couch, phone face down. Just waiting. At 3:03 a.m. exactly. 3 knocks. They were hard. Like someone pounding with their fist. It echoed through the whole house. I didn't move. 10 minutes never felt so long in my life. I could hear breathing on the other side of the door. Slow. Like something was leaning against it. At 3:13, the breathing stopped. I didn't dare move until 3:20. I turned the lights back on. Opened the door. The paper with my name was gone. Nothing was there. I texted the group chat. Done. That was intense. But Mikey never replied. Not that night. Not the next day. We figured he was messing with us. Or sleeping it off. But 2 days passed and nothing. We drove to his place. His car was there. Door locked. Lights off. No answer. Drew had a spare key from a past project. We let ourselves in. The place was spotless. No signs of a struggle. Except for one thing. In the living room, drawn in red crayon on the white wall, were the words. I peeked. There were no signs of Mikey. No clothes missing. No phone. Just gone. We called the cops. They filed a report. No forced entry. No explanation. And that's when we got the second message. It came from Mikey's number. Just one text. You're next, Trent. At first, I thought it was Rob messing with me. But he swore he hadn't texted anyone. He even looked pale as hell when I showed him the message. Then I got a knock on my door. At 2:45 p.m. Middle of the day. Bright outside. I looked through the peephole. No one was there. Then another knock. But this time from the back door. My back door doesn't even have a porch. Just dirt and a fence. I ran through the house and yanked the blinds open. No one. But the door handle was twitching. Like someone was barely touching it. Just enough to make it jiggle. Over and over. I bolted every door and window. Slept in my car with the engine running. And I didn't go back inside until the next morning. That night, I found something under my windshield wiper. A sheet of paper. It just said, "You opened the door when you told someone. Now it knows your name." I tried to burn it. The flames wouldn't catch. It crumpled, but it wouldn't tear. I ended up burying it miles from home. Then I got a video from an unknown number. It was grainy footage. Dark. Looked like it was from my living room. Me. Sitting on the couch. From behind. In real time. Except I wasn't there. I was at Drew's when it came through. The video had no timestamp. But it ended with my front door slowly creaking open, and a pale hand wrapping around the doorframe. That night, Drew crashed on my couch. Said we'd get through it. He didn't wake up. His body was still there, lying stiff as a board. No marks. No wounds. Just gone inside. Eyes open, mouth stretched in a silent scream. The medical examiner said it was a cardiac event. Bull. Drew was 25. No history. And his body was ice cold, like he'd been dead for hours. I left town after that. Got rid of my phone. Changed my name. Even stayed off the internet. Moved across the country. I thought maybe it was tied to the house. But now, I hear it again. Every night at 3:03, I hear the knock. No matter where I stay. Motel, friend's place, even once in a car on the side of a highway. Always 3 knocks. Always the same time. Sometimes, I hear my name whispered from outside the window. Or I wake up to see handprints on the inside of the glass, facing inward. And sometimes, I wake up holding a crayon. Red. I don't know what this thing is, but it's patient. It waits. And it follows. So listen to me. If you ever hear a challenge like this, don't take it. Not for a dare. Not for a thrill. Not for a video. Because once it knows your name, it doesn't knock to come in. It knocks so you'll answer. I used to live alone in a small apartment on the 3rd floor of an old building in Pittsburgh. It was a decent place, quiet, affordable, and close to my job. But the weirdest part about the apartment wasn't inside it. It was across the courtyard, in the unit directly facing mine. From my living room window, I had a perfect view of the neighboring apartment's living room. At first, I never really paid attention to it. But after a while, I started noticing something strange. Every night, around 1 a.m., a man would appear at the window. He never turned on a light. He never moved much. He would just stand there, staring out the window into the darkness. Or maybe at me. At first I thought it was just a weird coincidence. I figured he liked staring at the night sky or something. But as the nights went on, I realized it was too consistent. Same time, same place, same posture. He never sat down, never had his phone out, never even blinked. I tried to convince myself I was just being paranoid, but something about his silhouette creeped me out. He was tall, very thin, and had this weird way of standing perfectly still like a mannequin. One night, curiosity got the better of me. I waited until 1 a.m., turned off all the lights in my apartment, and sat in the dark watching his window. And right on cue, he appeared. But this time something changed. His head slowly tilted upward, as if he knew I was watching him. I froze. The way he moved, it didn't feel natural. It was too smooth, too precise, like his neck had no resistance. I got up and walked away from the window. I didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, I decided to report it to the building manager. Not as a complaint, just to ask if someone lived there. Maybe it was a vacant unit and someone was squatting. But when I brought it up, the manager gave me a confused look. "Nobody's rented that apartment for months," she said. "Last tenant moved out in May." Why? My stomach dropped. I went back to my place and waited until the sun went down. Around 11 p.m., I turned off the lights again and sat on the couch, staring across the courtyard. And at 1 a.m., like clockwork, he showed up. Only this time, his head was already tilted up. Staring straight at me, I slammed the blinds shut. The next day, I called the police. 2 officers came by that evening, and I explained everything. They went to the unit across the courtyard to check it out. I watched from my window as they entered. They were inside for maybe 5 minutes before coming back out and knocking on my door. "There's nobody in that unit," one of them said. Door was locked. Windows too. Place is empty, no furniture, no signs of entry. I asked if they saw any footprints or evidence someone had been standing at the window. They just shrugged and said, "Nope. Floor's dusty as hell. No prints at all." They left shortly after, and I stood there in the middle of my apartment, completely unnerved. That night, I didn't plan to look out the window. I tried to sleep early, but something woke me up, this weird, static-like buzzing in my ears. Like TV white noise, but distant and low. I sat up, heart pounding. My clock said 12:58 a.m. I didn't want to check. I told myself not to, but I did. And when I peeked through the blinds, he was in my apartment, standing just a few feet from me. His face didn't look right. It was smooth, like it hadn't finished forming. No nose. A slit of a mouth. Deep, sunken eye sockets with nothing inside. He didn't move. Didn't speak. I backed away slowly, never taking my eyes off him. And then he did something I'll never forget. He raised one long, bony finger and pointed at me. I ran. Straight out of the apartment. I didn't stop until I was outside on the street. I stayed at a friend's place for a week after that. When I came back with movers to grab my stuff, nothing was out of place. No signs of a break-in. But there, on the inside of my living room window, written in the dust with a finger, were 3 words. "You saw me." I broke the lease and never looked back. I still don't sleep near windows. And I never, ever look out after midnight. Because once you see him, He never stops watching. When Jason booked a weekend getaway in the middle of nowhere, he thought it would be the perfect way to disconnect from the pressures of city life. A remote cabin, nestled deep in the woods, sounded like the ideal place to relax and recharge. His friends had warned him that it might be too isolated, but he shrugged it off. He wanted peace, after all. A weekend to himself, with no distractions. The cabin was more rustic than he expected, with creaky wooden floors and a fireplace that seemed to be the only source of warmth. But it had everything he needed: a bed, a kitchen, and a couple of chairs to sit in by the fire. He unpacked his things, settled in, and enjoyed a quiet evening, reading a book he had brought with him. The first night was uneventful, and Jason slept soundly, the crackling of the fire lulling him into a deep sleep. But the next morning, when he woke up, something felt off. There was a strange coldness in the air, despite the fire still burning in the fireplace. He shook it off, thinking it was just the early morning chill. Jason spent the day exploring the area around the cabin. He walked through the woods, enjoying the fresh air and the peaceful solitude. But as the sun began to set, he noticed something strange, a faint light flickering in the distance. It wasn't coming from another cabin, as he'd thought at first, but rather from deeper in the woods. It was too far to make out clearly, but it looked like a candle or a lantern. Curious, Jason made his way toward the light, figuring he'd find some other hiker or camper. As he walked, the light seemed to flicker and move, almost as if it was beckoning him forward. The air grew colder the closer he got, and a strange feeling of unease crept over him. He had never been afraid of the woods before, but something about this place felt different. The trees were thick, their branches reaching out like dark fingers, blocking the light of the setting sun. By the time he reached the source of the light, he found nothing. The woods were silent, and the light had disappeared. Jason stood there for a moment, confused and a little frustrated. There was no sign of anyone, just an empty patch of ground and the darkening trees. He made his way back to the cabin, but as he walked, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was following him. Every so often, he'd hear a twig snap behind him or the rustling of leaves, but when he turned around, there was nothing there. Back in the cabin, Jason tried to relax, but the strange feeling persisted. He lit the fireplace, poured himself a drink, and sat down in the chair. The wind began to howl outside, rattling the windows, and the fire crackled loudly in the silence. Jason pulled the blanket tighter around him, trying to ignore the creeping sense of dread that had settled in his chest. As the night went on, the sounds outside grew louder. It wasn't just the wind anymore. He could hear footsteps, dragging noises, and what sounded like whispers. At first, he thought it was his imagination, but the sounds were so distinct that they couldn't be ignored. He grabbed the flashlight and walked over to the door, peering through the small window. The woods outside were pitch black, the trees swaying in the wind, but there was no sign of anything unusual. Jason tried to convince himself that he was just spooked by the isolation. It was late, and his mind was playing tricks on him. But as he turned to head back to his seat, he saw it. In the corner of the room, by the fireplace, there was a figure standing just out of the light's reach. It was tall, too tall and thin, with limbs that seemed to stretch unnaturally. Jason froze, his heart pounding in his chest. The figure didn't move, didn't make a sound. It just stood there, watching him. For a moment, Jason couldn't breathe. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Was it a person? Or something else? The air around him grew colder, and the figure slowly began to step into the light. Its face was pale and featureless, like a mask of smooth white skin, with hollow, empty eyes. It didn't have a mouth, but Jason could hear a soft whispering coming from it, a language he couldn't understand. The whispering grew louder, more frantic, as the figure took another step forward. Jason couldn't move. His legs felt like they were frozen to the floor, his body refusing to obey his commands. The figure raised its hand, long fingers curling in the air like it was reaching for something, or someone. Without thinking, Jason bolted for the door. He flung it open and ran into the night, not looking back. The woods were dark, the trees looming like twisted shapes in the shadows. He could hear the whispers behind him, getting closer and closer. The cold air bit into his skin as he ran, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He didn't stop to look back. He didn't dare. The whispers were growing louder now, right behind him, but he couldn't see anything in the darkness. He could feel the presence, though the cold, oppressive weight of it closing in. Eventually, Jason stumbled into a clearing, his legs giving out from exhaustion. He collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. The whispering had stopped, and for a moment, there was nothing but the sound of the wind rustling through the trees. But then he heard it, soft, almost imperceptible at first, but unmistakable. A voice whispering his name. Jason. He turned slowly, his eyes scanning the darkness. There, standing in the shadows of the trees, was the figure. It was closer now, its pale face illuminated by the moonlight. Its mouth was open, stretching impossibly wide, revealing rows of sharp, jagged teeth. And then it spoke again. I've been waiting.